Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to introduce ourselves and our esteemed employer recruiter panelists that have joined us today. We are so appreciative of their time and sharing their expertise. Today's session is preparing students for today's competitive job market. The session is designed for use of faculty and staff as SUNY Oswego. It'll also be recorded so we can share out with our colleagues who aren't able to join us this afternoon. We're really looking at an opportunity to strengthen the connection between academia and a workforce by equipping faculty, staff, and campus partners with insights from leader recruiters like those joining us today. So thank you all. My name is Jackie Wallace. I'm the Associate Director of Career Education at Oswego and the Career Coach for Exploratory and Undeclared. And co-hosting with me, Megan Mazzoccone. Say hello, introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you all so much for joining. I'm Megan Mazzoccone. I'm an Assistant Director at Career Services, and I'm also the Career Coach for Communication, Media, and the Arts. So I'm very excited to speak with all of you today. So thanks for coming.
So I'd like to first start with our first panelist, Mark Lobel. Mark is a retired PricewaterhouseCoopers partner with a communications degree from SUNY Oswego, an alum, an MBA from Boston University, and numerous professional certifications, including CISM, CISSP, QSA, and CRO. He has over 40 years of business experience specializing in cybersecurity, risk management, IT controls. Early in his career, he worked in the entertainment and media industry before earning his MBA and joining PwC. Where there he held key leadership roles, including overseeing risk transformation initiatives, integrating generative AI tools to enhance customer centricity. Mark is internationally recognized for his expertise in cybersecurity and has led practices such as the New York Metro Cybersecurity Risk and Regulatory Practice, and he has the Global Technology, Media, and Telecom Cybersecurity Leader. Mark has been a prominent speaker at industry events and has served on advisory boards, including Oswego's Communications Advisory Board, ISACA's Cybersecurity Advisory Board, and the Carnegie Mellon CISO Certification Program. Did I get that all right, Mark?
You got it perfectly. And the one which I forgot to add in there, I also created electronic voting and I counted the Oscars. Voting for 14 years, counted the Oscars for 5 years. And I'll put in a plug for my former client that they're going to announce the nominations tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody should watch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very exciting. I have the pleasure of introducing Ashley Zernak. She is the recruitment director at City Year. City Year is an educational organization that believes all children can succeed and that developing and investing in our young people contributes to strong and vibrant communities. Fueled by national service, City Year AmeriCorps members serve in schools all day, every day, as student success coaches, preparing students with all the skills and mindsets to thrive and contribute to their community. Ashley graduated from the Ohio State University in 2012 with a bachelor's in psychology. During her time at Ohio State, she was a member of the women's varsity rowing team, helping the team win a Big Ten championship. Following graduation, she served with City Year for 2 years. Ashley then completed a 3rd year of national service with AmeriCorps NCCC, providing disaster relief across the country. Following her time at AmeriCorps, Ashley returned to City Year, starting as an admissions manager before moving to her current role in recruitment. As a recruitment director, Ashley manages recruiters in 7 cities, including Chicago, Cleveland, Columbus, Buffalo, Boston, Manchester, and Providence. Outside of work, Ashley enjoys spending time with her partner and her 2-year-old daughter, cheering on Ohio State Buckeyes and diving into a good book. So welcome, Ashley. Thank you.
I now have the pleasure of welcoming John Dickens. John R. Dickens is a senior human resources professional with experience overseeing all aspects of human resources with a specialization in recruiting, creating and developing community partnerships, and school networks. He is a team builder with experience communicating organizational visions, managing initiatives, developing, executing operational and school recruiting plans, directing administrative staffs, delegating authority, coaching, mentoring, and inspiring, influencing others. He is highly responsible resource manager, adept at providing policy and procedural guidance to executives with the ability to work independently and multitask effectively. He is a trusted team member with a people-first focus. John is also a combat veteran who served over 27 years in the United States Army as a human resources specialist, sergeant, and commissioned officer, culminating as the United States Army Recruiting Battalion Commander in Syracuse, New York, where he has led an organization to recruit and enlist over 2,388 individuals into the United States Army. He officially retired from active duty, serving on the 1st of December, 2023. During his service, he deployed 3 times, 30 months to Iraq and Afghanistan, providing leadership in pivotal human resources roles, supporting the units in combat operations. John has earned multiple military awards to include the Legion of Merit and 2 Bronze Stars for his service, leadership, and personal and professional achievements. John is currently employed as a university and veteran recruiter with Micron Technology, under the direction of George Ram III, and Senior Program Manager for Veteran Outreach and Diversity Recruiting. In this role, John directly contributes to veteran hiring through continuous sourcing and outreach across the country. He provides experiential insights and the development of veteran recruiting strategies initiatives for Micron. In a highly competitive market, he assists in building robust talent pipelines and methods to increase veteran talent growth, hiring, and the expansion of the semiconductor industry within the United States. John is a native of upstate Central New York. He obtained a Bachelor of Arts degree in Social Studies with a minor in Anthropology and Environmental Studies from Ithaca College and a Master's of Science in Education from the State University of New York at Oswego. He is also a graduate of the United States Army Command and General Staff College, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. John is married over 28 years to Wendy, a native of Utica, New York, and has 3 adult children who reside in Central New York. Did I give everything, John?
You did. And then my spouse is also a SUNY Oswego graduate.
Oh, excellent.
Great. And last but certainly not least, we have Don Barr. Don graduated from SUNY Oswego in 1985 as a communication broadcasting major. The 3 most influential professors mentoring Don's career would be Dr. Lewis O'Donnell, Fritz Messer, and Dr. John Smith, which is so nice that you mentioned them, by the way. After his first adult job after graduating, research analyst at ITS rep firm in New York City, Don became an account executive at WMGC-TV in Binghamton, New York. Don eventually was promoted to general sales manager at WBNG-TV in Binghamton. From there, he became the general sales manager at WGME-TV for 10 years in Portland, Maine, 2 years general sales manager at WAFF-TV in Huntsville, Alabama, and then 12 years as general sales manager at WNDU-TV in South Bend. Don became general manager of WYDC-TV Big Fox in Elmira, Corning, New York in August 2024. After all the years in the TV broadcasting field, this is by far the most exciting time as we're witnessing the tectonic shift on how we communicate, the coming of age digital and social media, and the mobile devices that change everything. And he is just grateful to be part of it. So thank you, Don, for being part of this with us.
Thank you, Megan.
So we have a few questions that we prepared for ahead of time and shared with our panelists. If I can ask folks, because we have some great questions and so many experts on today's panel, we'll start with, focusing on kind of your top insights into each question, 2-3 minutes. And as we have time, we'll continue to, have opportunities to share out for folks to also ask questions. Feel free to put them in the chat as we go along. But our first round of questions, we're going to start in order of introductions. So Mark, if you can kick us off with, what strategies can faculty use to align academic programs with the skills and competencies to company values most in candidates?
Sure. Thank you very much. I think there's a couple of things. Some of these are very classic, I would say. Listening, communication skills, writing skills, all the type of interactions that people will have in a normal business environment making sure those things, in addition to the subject matter of their particular focus and major, would be those key things. But the one I'll add, and we'll get into this a lot more in questions to come, is also technology skills, and specifically how to leverage artificial intelligence, specifically generative AI, to their advantage. There are certain things you need to know how to use it, but I think at this point, if the students aren't knowledgeable and leveraging it effectively, they're putting themselves slightly and more over time at a competitive disadvantage to other students who are leveraging generative AI tools successfully, depending on, of course, what the role are. They've learned physical therapy, probably a little less than if they're moving into some type of management position, where I think it will be critical going forwards.
Thank you. And Ashley.
Yeah, thank you. I think to add on to that, I feel like it can be super helpful incorporating employers from certain industries into your class when appropriate, whether as like a guest lecturer or just kind of having a spotlight, so students can really start to see the pathway of the content they're learning and how it connects to future career opportunities and folks who are doing those jobs. I also really want to highlight what Mark said, some of those soft skills like communication, writing, and also helping students feel confident in applying for jobs, in understanding what the market's looking for, kind of just being that guidance and mentor to them, encouraging them to explore different opportunities. I've seen a lot of students hesitant to apply for certain things or kind of just not sure if they're the right fit. But you don't know until you put yourself out there. So kind of just helping expose students to more opportunities as well. I know that faculty and professors are some of the most influential individuals on students when they're thinking about their career. So you really can expose them to a lot of great different pipelines and pathways.
Thank you. And John.
All right, thank you. So I think what was mentioned already is probably the biggest thing is the soft skills that can be advanced as far as giving them opportunities to be able to do presentations and exhibit their skills in that form, and then also to increase the number of repetitions they have doing that, so they become very comfortable in that. If you can look people in the eyes and and be able to present yourself in a way where it becomes more comfortable. It probably took me years to do that, even in some of the positions that I was in the military, in order to become comfortable doing that. So the more opportunities, the more repetitions in that, I think is certainly helpful. I think absolutely what was mentioned about being comfortable with the applications that are out there in the AI, to be able to use those to be able to put yourself forward on the resume preparation and other skills that you would gain in doing so. As mentioned, if you don't do that, then you are putting yourself behind, especially when it becomes something that you're using in the search for those jobs. And then obviously, we'll talk more about networking opportunities and how that enhances your ability to put yourself out there. So thank you.
And Don.
Oh, is it my turn now? Okay. So, no, it's great. When you get the interview, I like, what Ashley said about confidence, and then Mark and John about AI, but I've interviewed a lot of people. And we want to hire you. If you get an interview, I want to hire you. And you don't have to be nervous. Oh my gosh, what am I going to say? Oh my gosh, I got an interview. What do I do? You have to be yourself, knowing that I want to hire you, because and what I look for is just the desire and your communication skills. Can we talk to you? And to prepare for that is you need to do the AI and researching the position that you're applying for. Hey, what does a program manager do at a TV station? What does a salesperson do? What's good questions for a reporter to ask a news director in an interview? All these things that you could ask these AI machines, and you better get an idea of what to ask for. But just be yourself. I'm not looking at all the skill sets and all that. I'm looking for desire, willingness to learn, and just be yourself. I always say to myself, do I want to meet with you a second time? Or if I did lunch with you, do I want to go out to lunch again with you? And if the answer is yes, and you have the personality and to excel in any work environment, we'll train you. That's the easy part. But just be yourself, and you'll do just fine.
So I know when you hear each other speak, you might think of, one last thing you wanted to chime in. So is there anything else anyone wanted to add about the strategies the faculty and staff can use to align academic programs to help students develop the skills and competencies that each of you are looking for in candidates? Mark?
I guess the one more thing to throw, well, first of all, agree with everything that was said, and I really like your comment, Don. You got to start with the assumption that we want to hire you, that it's approach it positively, approach it with confidence. And then I would say just the other thing, and this comes back to the classwork, is looking at those soft skills. And one I specifically wanted to mention and didn't was just teamwork. A lot of the large complex projects that a lot of companies do involve working with others. And the more teamwork that can be worked into the classwork and have those practical examples that they can talk to an employer about, I think that also adds to the story and strengthens the story.
Same. Awesome. This is a really great transition into our second question, because you talked a lot about some of the softer skills or the specific skills, but are there, when you're evaluating candidates, are there experiences or activities such as internships, research projects, or campus involvement such as student organizations that really stand out to you the most? Don, I'm going to start with you this time.
Okay, gotta unmute. Okay. No, absolutely. I look for, is there a path? Internships are good. Joining any type of group, any club, any community service, that's all great. And does your CV or resume, show your desire to do something? If you're interested in this, what does your classwork, school, and additional activity support what you want to do? And so anything is good to join different clubs, different things. Mark LaBelle and I were part of the TV station and radio stations of Oswego and a few clubs. And you don't know it at the time. You think, oh, I'm just doing this. But boy, do you go back and use some of those skill sets that you've learned with teamwork and collaboration and talking. So I just look for, does what you say match up with what you do?
Now it's my turn to unmute. That's great. That I think, and something that you said, Mark, with the teamwork, I think, would you mind speaking to that a bit? Like, we have a lot of folks in a really high group of students that are student athletes. Is that something that you can see, like that would excite you to come across as a potential candidate?
Absolutely, yes. It's not the only thing. Any examples where somebody was able to work effectively as a team member, and I'll highlight two pieces there specifically. One of the standard questions that we ask is, give me an example where you worked on a large complex project and where you had to work with others on a team. What was the situation? What was your role on the team, and what was the outcome? And we ask that question that way, I think, as a lot of the career services people know, is because I'm looking for the person to answer it in those three tranches about what was the situation, what was your role in the team, what was the outcome, to see if they're listening and to see, again, the soft skills and communication skills. I'm also looking to see, are they the one who has to be the team leader? They have to give an example where they had to be the leader, Or are they comfortable enough in their own skin to answer that I was a member of the team and I specifically, added value in these things that I know I'm good at? Do they know themselves? So, A, that's kind of the question, the standard question we ask about teamwork. And B, that's what we're kind of looking for the answer. Now, if you are a natural leader and you're leader of the team, that's fine. But that piece of information about how they answer the question helps inform, who they are and what I may be looking for out of them and how I can align that with whatever potential role I'm trying to fill.
That's fantastic. Thank you. John and Ashley, do you have anything to add, or maybe something in addition that you look for, or what would excite you to see any sort of internships or campus involvement?
Yes, I say I would totally agree with how they commit themselves in the answer to being a follower, because good leaders are also good followers. You know your part in the team, right? And you can contribute to that without being the one out front. And that's just as important. So, and then also, any person can come up with a great idea. You don't necessarily have to be the leader of the project to be the one that dictates the ideas that come out and then produce outcomes that are beneficial to all. So I think, your collaboration and being able to prove that you have those skills is helpful. Your involvement with others, being part of a team, excites me. I like to participate in team sports. When I was in college, it was involved in intercollegiate sports as well. It shows that you're willing to put yourself out there in another realm other than just academics, to be able to showcase what you're able to do, and then that you have a life that can balance between work and other things. And then being able to express what your impact is on a project and what the output might have been, and be able to put that on paper so that it can be seen or be explained by you in the process of interviewing, it is also very helpful.
Ashley, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, definitely. I think the kind of what everyone has been sharing, for me, the exact organizations like student club, doing research, whatever it looks like, being an athlete, the specifics don't really matter. I'm more curious how someone's able to really reflect upon their experience and be able to share some of those transferable skills that have been spoken about. I really want to know, did you hold a leadership position? What did that look like? Or maybe you didn't hold a title, but you were still able to lead in certain ways. And even if you were the leader, how did you support other folks and lift them up? Kind of having that self-reflection and understanding. That teamwork and collaboration really does play into everything that you'll be doing in the future. And I think we all are looking to hire folks who will be a strong teammate for us and a strong contributor to the team. So we're trying to understand that. I also really like to see when students are passionate about what they're a part of. You can definitely tell if a student just kind of in something just to be in it and have it on their resume. They think it aligns with what they should be doing, or it's something that they're actually invested in. And I would much rather a student commit their time and energy to something that they're passionate about. They're seeing the results, whatever that looks like, versus something that they're like, I think this aligns with what I need to be doing. They're able to speak so much more to that. So encouraging students to really follow their passions and kind of use this time to explore that. I think the other piece is I prefer to see like some longevity, like maybe sticking with something for a year or two versus having like 10 different things you were a part of. Like, how were you committed to it? How did you see it grow and transform over time? Those are some things I kind of look for.
So I think the next question is going to look very different based upon industry areas and stuff too. So I'm looking forward to some feedback. But in thinking about compensation negotiation and the role it plays in the hiring process, how can students approach this with confidence? And is it something that's acceptable in your industry area? And I'm going to start with John first, and then go to Ashley.
I think, doing the research to know what the range is kind of right off the bat is, just knowing that to begin with is certainly helpful. But there is, in some cases, some negotiation there based off of what your experiences have been in your projects. But it can be limited. You got to know, where you kind of stand in that process and where your certifications or your education is, and at what level that may produce and based off the industry. So it can be a wide ranging depending on what you're looking at. But in the specific talks with the recruiter, you can get an idea about what the negotiation room is. So I wouldn't be too afraid to approach that, but you got to know read the room basically when you're in the process. So it's maybe hard to gain those skills, but it's not unheard of.
So it's something that would happen in your industry area, or is it something that's common in?
We see some people come in very high, and I think they very quickly get told that you're kind of out of range. But let's take a look at that, and then why do you think that we should be in that range? And if they can explain it, then they may be able to get somewhere with that. But you got to have some of the cred to back it up with.
Thank you. Ashley, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of being in the nonprofit sector, at least in my organization, try to lead with transparency around the salary to kind of ensure that folks have that information out front to kind of take away some of that maybe question mark around what the salary is or what that negotiation could look like. But I do feel like the compensation conversations, negotiating your salary, especially when getting a job offer, that's something students need to practice having those conversations to gain confidence before they're in that moment experiencing it for the first time. I think there's definitely a place for everyone to advocate for themselves and to get what they deserve. And more times than not, folks just need to ask. But I think a lot of folks, especially as they're maybe coming into their first job out of college or a couple of jobs down the road, still don't really know how to have that conversation. So I think kind of just like having mock conversations with a counselor, or kind of just even thinking about, okay, if this comes up, how might I approach that? It's a skill that a lot of students unfortunately don't have just because they haven't thought about that, or when they actually get to that point, maybe are unsure how to broach that conversation. So the more they can gain skills and confidence in just having that conversation, I think can help them grow and hopefully empower them to a higher salary.
And Mark, what are your thoughts here?
I think we approach it a little differently. And I think that the faculty and career services can do is to help the students understand the compensation approach of each different type of company. And the specific example I'll give you at PwC on the consulting side of the house. On the audit side of the house, interestingly, we do it like John was describing, and it's kind of salary ranges. But on the consulting side, there are defined cohorts. And what I mean by that is specific salary amounts based on geography and based on experience. So if you are coming in from campus, for example, as an entry-level associate from your undergrad degree, every associate in the same geography makes the same amount. Now, on the negative side, it leaves less flexibility for the employer. And if somebody has, if there's somebody who interviewed really well, they're going to get paid the same. On the positive, it's fairness. If you have somebody who, based on gender, based on culture, doesn't matter whether you know how to negotiate or not, you're going to be fairly compensated against all your peers in that geography across the United States. And even from a legal liability perspective, the firm has taken that perspective on that to make sure that the pay is fair. Now, having said all that, if a student comes in with different experience than peers, that's something to highlight in that particular situation. But and I'm happy to have a one-off discussion about that separately afterwards. But to sum it up, I think understanding what that compensation approach is of each of the different types of companies, each different types of employers, and how to work within that structure is something that can add a lot of value to the students.
Thank you. And Don, what else would you add?
Yeah, everyone had some great points there. But you have to realize if this is your first adult job out of college, okay, your first adult, okay, career one, you don't have any leverage, okay? Yeah, and there are pay scales and there are pay amounts per what the position is. And, at a TV station, there's a pay scale for reporters that is a range. There's a pay scale for salespeople. There's a pay scale for commercial producers. digital content providers. And so you know, with that pay scale, you can't come in and say, oh my God, I gotta have 70,000. Oh my God, like legit, you know, I have all these debts and I need 70,000, otherwise I'm not gonna come. Whoa. No, slow down, okay? We'll get you to 70,000, but this is how you have to go, okay? And just knowing that pay scale, and I would always at first, just to get into a company is, I would appreciate whatever pay is fair for the job and the responsibilities that's asked of me. And is there areas that we can grow? You know, you're a team player, because it's like, okay, well, we're going to start you here at this hour or this dollar amount. We're going to start you at 50,000. Okay, well, where's the growth then? And how can I grow? Is there career improvement? So generally there's a little wiggle room on the amount, but like like Mark said, and sometimes that's just what it is. And I can't go higher or lower. And so you have to do the research knowing what you're getting yourself into. But once you're in, now you're in. And now all of a sudden things change because now you get some experience, you get a year and a half or 2 years experience, your pay will go up. Now you open the doors into bigger things. And then that's when your pay can really increase, you know, by 10, 15, 20,000 in more a year.
Would you say that, you know, there might be some folks that are coming in with, you know, additional prior experience, whether it might not be a full-time job, but maybe they did, you know, internships or other things that other candidates might not? Would there be some opportunities to explore there?
Yes. Yeah, there's some experience or some internships or different things that put you like, okay, you got a higher skill set if I hired somebody with none. But then there's a return on that. I mean, there is a return on your internships. There is a return of your time on the clubs that you go to. You know, that does help a lot. But I just know that if I interview somebody from Notre Dame or somebody from Syracuse University, they're going to come in feeling entitled because they went to that school. And we always have to knock them down a few notches, okay? So to what reality is. And the students know. I mean, you know the pay scale of what you're getting yourself into. And just know that that's the case, but and then you're just willing to do the hard work and have your career explode.
Thank you. What I'm hearing is that we should only hire SUNY Oswego graduates. So I'm loving that. I'm going to move on to our next question because I have a feeling a lot of us will have a lot to say and a lot of additional questions on top of that. But so AI. What is the impact that AI is having on job applications and hiring decisions? And what should students know on how to effectively position themselves in this new AI-driven screening process? I know, Mark, you are ready to go to talk. I am going to start with Ashley and then go right to Mark.
Perfect. Yeah, and I probably don't have as much to say here as Mark and some others. So for me, what I would really say is as an organization, we're still trying to like embrace it and understand how we can use it to enhance our hiring processes. But I have seen it benefit students, and I've also seen it kind of raise some flags for us in terms of students submitting applications or resumes that are pretty obviously not put together by them. So kind of like just understanding how students can leverage the technology in a way that is a tool, but not solely using that. Like it still needs to be coming from the student themselves. I would also say we've encountered some situations with folks kind of using AI during like a virtual interview process, kind of like awkward pauses where, you know, potentially like kind of like taking the answer, looking up an answer, and then kind of reading that back. And this kind of like understanding that that's not really like what we're looking for. We're trying to authentically get to know you. So I think students really need to learn more about how to leverage it as a tool to support them, but it shouldn't only be AI answering questions or submitting applications. It still needs to be coming from you. That's my take on it, but yeah, I'll pass it over to Mark, who I think has a lot more information here.
No, completely agree. And I think that's a great point. at the end of the day, if you don't add anything beyond whatever the AI can help you do, you are not differentiated, and you are not only a competitive disadvantage, but a significant disadvantage from an AI just replacing you or replacing the role. You have to bring something to the table. But step one, you need to be able to understand the AI. So we use AI to screen the resumes or to do a first screen of the resume. So the resume that you're putting together, that the student's putting together, needs to be AI friendly. And then second, there's an assumption in that resume, especially for a lot of the knowledge-based roles that we have at a large professional services firm, that you are going to be able to leverage AI tools and techniques. So, the ability to use a generative AI to create a first version of a document, and the knowledge and experience to understand that generative AIs especially hallucinate, and that you can't just put something through and don't put a human review on it, and B, a a, a human perspective in addition to whatever the AI pushes out. So if you can't use the AI to make you better, but if you can't bring something to it, bring a human quality to it, you're not leveraging it effectively. But I think that base level of understanding what it is, how to use it, and how to use it effectively is going to be over the next couple of years. And I'll just leave you with one thought. One of the examples I saw from a seminar at the Consumer Electronics Show, they were doing examples where somebody uploaded a bunch of spreadsheets that would have taken at least 5 hours of work for an individual to do, and a generative AI analyzed the spreadsheets and created an interactive dialogue with the individual, and it took less than 5 minutes. So employers in the future, not yet, we're not quite there yet, but we'll be expecting 5 hours of work to be done in 5 minutes. If you're not ready for that, you're not ready to leverage AI, like I said before, definitely a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the world we're in now. And that's part of like, a very long time ago, not being able to use a computer. It's kind of starting to be, I wonder there, from the chat, someone asked if there's, can we always trust that these job ads are real online, or are they just trying to collect data? Or do we know much about that? I would say, like, with your departments, are they using AI generated? And forgive me, Frank Byrne, if I'm misrepresenting your question, but are humans also creating these job posts, or are they do we know if they're real job posts or the AI generated? And if so, what do we see in the future with that? Do you have any insight into that?
I would say that most of the jobs currently are generated by humans. Not always great descriptions and stuff, but sometimes job postings are even generic in what they would call an evergreen, where they're generic to catch applicants, and then applicants can then be put to a rec that is more specific to what they're looking for, right? So they might cast a net, and then the net can get them great candidates that then can be placed against the true requirements of another position that's out there. So I think that happens sometimes. I think also what you see is that you can never get away from the grading maybe that happens in the AI. If a parameter is considered, like a school is considered for a specific field to be a top school, and that's one of the grading requirements, they're looking for candidates from top schools, then only the programs can, or the schools courses can get better, or the professors that are providing those classes are graded in some way that offer a reputation that comes along with a school or a program. Those are still within some of the parameters that employers are looking for. So in some cases, you're going to these schools to look for these type of candidates, or these schools to look for these type of candidates. And as programs get more involved and more I guess, professional maturation over time and get better in some places, and some recede in places. So it's a constant grading of where do they consider the talent should come from based off of programs and evaluating. So whoever's evaluating, what are your criteria that you're using in order to find those candidates from that specific search?
Thank you. And then Don, do you have, what are your thoughts on AI?
Well, boy, I don't like it, but it's useful. Okay. I'll just, there's two things about it, and this is part of that tectonic shift of communication that we're all part of. I mean, this thing is changing everything, and it at a, the speed of light. I mean, so, two things. When you're putting in your resume or CV, you have these AI programs that Mark LaBelle creates to weed out the candidates that don't fit this algorithm. Okay. And boom, you'll never get to my desk if something on your CV or resume, oh, no. And I know I'm losing good candidates because this computer is only, listing these kind of things and the way this is worded and keywords and all that stuff, right? So that's one thing. But then when you have your resume, don't use AI to write it. Okay. Right away. I mean, when I look at a CV, a resume, and I see all these big, I want to this, using all kinds of long words, all kinds of different things. It's not how you talk. Your CV should be how you talk. Okay. Not what you cut and pasted and trying to be someone that you're not. Okay. So there's two ways of that. Now, to break through the AI to get to my attention, you got to look at the company. You got to look at the hiring manager. You got to look at LinkedIn. You got to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I applied for your position. That gets through the AI jungle of resumes that come across my desk. And now there's a personal connection. Okay, so you use AI to get that information, to get my name and my LinkedIn address or my email. But you have to use it both and just write it as you talk, and instead of trying to get into a conversation that you're using all kinds of catchwords that you think an employer wants to hear.
Yes, certainly. I know we have a lot more AI questions. I'm going to get to our last question, and then if we have time, I'm going to circle back to some of these AI wonderful questions that you all have.
Sounds good. I will bring one up just because I'm also curious too, and I have heard from different employers the GPA question. I hear it more so that it's a factor, from graduate programs, but also for accounting and finance. So clarify for me, and anyone can jump in, of how important is the GPA? And Mark, I see you're already off mute, so you can go first.
Sure. I would just say, yeah, it's absolutely important. It's not the only factor that gets looked at, but we're hiring thousands of candidates every year. We are reviewing 5x to 10x or 20x the number of resumes to find those thousands of candidates every year across all the different types of tax, audit, and consulting that the firm does. You got to draw some lines somewhere to try to tighten up the group. So yeah, absolutely. The GPA is one of those considerations. Depending on the role, depending on what they're trying to accomplish, they may draw the line at a 3.0 or a 3.5. With grade inflation, that's also kind of moved the bar up. But yes, it is absolutely one of the factors that gets considered when you're trying to stratify a very large population.
Anyone else have something different that they're looking at, or you feel that aligns, John?
I agree. I would say it's definitely a differentiator. And then certainly if you can add more activities along with the great GPA, then you're certainly cooking. But if you have a low GPA and you didn't do anything outside of those, then I certainly am not going to be looking a little bit further. unless, that would make a hard mark, I think, for individuals if you had a very low GPA and then you didn't have other activities explained or that were not there. So certainly is a differentiator.
All right, I'm going to ask the last question, and then as there's time, I know there's a couple questions in the chat, but John, I'm going to start with you first. Would you encourage students to apply for roles even if they don't 100% meet the qualifications? And what attributes or qualities make candidates stand out in these cases?
I would say yes, absolutely. Each of us hopefully are stretching in our own jobs every day, trying to do things that we're not necessarily totally qualified for, but we're stretching in our own capabilities to get better. So I'd say that happens, and that people should look for those opportunities. You never know what connection might be there that allows you to get a position, even if you aren't fully qualified. I think I found that in my own cases. I was looked at early on in a specific career role as I came out of the military. In the middle of my service, I went to the reserves and came out of active duty for a short period of time. The only reason I got picked up for that job is because I had a connection with a hiring manager in a specific unit that I was involved in that he was in as well, and then that made a connection. So certain things, certain qualifications listed on a resume that are not necessarily in the AI generated piece that make you different, that could be way off, even if it's an instrument or something that you play that might be a connection to a hiring manager, can sometimes be the differentiator on why you get selected and someone else doesn't, even if they may have more qualifications. They have a connection to you already because you have something unique that they identify with. So it can go and be helpful, even if it's not a specific qualification for the job that you do not have that experience.
And anyone else that wants to chime in that's also got some perspective on how else folks can stand out in the process, if that's true?
Yes. Multiple roles. Apply for multiple roles. When I'm hiring people, I'm always looking at other skill sets to cover for PTO days with another person, or if this person has this and this, okay, well, that's good because I want bench strength on my team. If I have 70 employees, I need to know who's adaptable and can cover for other people. And also for the career moves. Someone may try something for 2 years and one thing, but really wants to go in that position within the TV station. And so, yeah, apply for multiple roles. Absolutely.
And Mark?
I'll agree with what was said. I'll just take the other side of it. If an individual doesn't have 100% of the qualifications, I agree they should. But at some point when you're at 50% of the qualifications or 40% of the qualifications, if that overlapping Venn diagram circles are just not overlapping enough with what the role actually is, they've also got to be realistic about how far they're extending, how far they're reaching.
Good point. Yep.
Ashley, anything to add?
Yeah, just to chime in, agree with everything that was shared. But yes, also encourage folks to apply, especially if they don't meet 100% of the qualifications, especially if they still feel like they're a strong candidate. Particularly women candidates are much less likely to apply if they don't meet 100% of the qualifications. So really just thinking about how we can encourage and build that confidence so we can, have more women applying to roles as well. They're more likely to be held back by feeling the need to meet 100% of the requirements. So just thinking about what that looks like too.
And one of the things I know as a career coach I try to emphasize too is thinking about your transferable skills. And when it says so many years of experience, well, let's look at your internships and your research and everything, and how can you articulate that as experience counting towards that, and that you don't know what the candidate pool looks like, right? The 100% way of not getting a call is not to apply at all. So, take your chances. If there's something that you are really excited about, and let that enthusiasm show through, as long as you're meeting, some minimal qualifications there. Let's do it. Let's talk about those transferable skills and experiences. I know there's a couple of things in the chat. We're right at time though too, but wanted to have an opportunity for folks, 30 seconds. What are your parting words or advice that you would like to give today? I'm going to start with John and then go to Ashley, Don, and Mark.
Be confident. You never make 100% of the shots you don't take.
Love that quote.
Yes, I was going to say, be confident as well. Lean into those soft skills. Think about teamwork, collaboration, and just kind of how you can shine your brightest light.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is a great time in your career and a great time. Apply and enjoy this whole process. Again, if I post a job, which I have 3 openings at my TV station. I want to hire you. So you just have to get in front of me and just be yourself and show the desire to succeed and you'll do just great. It's a great time in your career. I wish I had the wisdom back then that I do now. So
Great words of
enjoy.
advice that we could share with our students. Love it. And Mark?
Um, absolutely agree. And I think bringing that confidence in your actual abilities, and Ashley, I cannot agree with you more. I've seen so many men who are confident and less qualified, and women who are less confident and dramatically more qualified. And being able to cut through the clutter there to find those really qualified candidates, no matter depending on how they're presenting themselves in a specific recruiting interview, has made a difference over time. And we found some really fantastic candidates because of that. The one thing I'll leave with the warning, and there was a question in the meeting chat about posting roles that aren't actually there. And I think there are unethical companies that are out there putting out positions just to collect information. But as a cybersecurity person, I'll also just leave it with the warning that there are also criminals who are putting job roles out there to collect personally identifiable information to commit cybercrime against the candidates, which is just a double terrible thing.
Yeah.
And lots of stories you can talk through later, but just make sure your students are looking at the companies and looking at reputable companies to apply to.
One quick little
They're not in there.
anecdote there, Mark,
Go ahead, Tom.
is wear a tie. If you're a guy, wear a tie to your interview. And when you shake the person's hand, look them in the eye. Okay. The first impression is so good. And you shake the person's hand, look them in the eye and say your name and introduce yourself. I would have a code with interviewing. The receptionist downstairs, if it was a guy, I would say yes or no. And if they said yes, that meant he has a tie. And if they said no, I'm like, okay, this is going to be 10 minutes. You know, I didn't have that trouble with the female candidates. They were all business dressed and well dressed, but you have to show respect for the company and the position in the day and age of no ties and business casual. There's places for that, which I welcome. I mean, I'm not wearing a tie right now, and I'm the general manager, but certain situations require it and wear one.
So I'm going to put out there for career services. If students are in doubt about opportunities, we're here to support them. We have information on our website too about how to identify fraudulent employers and stuff as well. But all aspects of the career exploration and application process is something we're here for. But I appreciate we don't do it alone. And so we have so many faculty staff as evident today of how many people are supporting, whether it's through the curriculum, through advisement, through mentoring, our students' ability to be successful in applying, competing for amazing opportunities with employers and recruiters, such as everyone that joined us this afternoon. So I want to give a big shout out to everyone that joined us, and especially Mark, John, Ashley, Don. Thank you for the time you spent this afternoon. It flew by. We appreciate your expertise, your time, and your candid perspectives for today and how we can best support our students and our alumni. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to Selt as well for your continued support and opportunities to provide these sessions.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good